Are Doug and Roger Britz joining us?
Roger's trying to get in right now. You're on the air.
Well, in the absence of the mayor, I guess we should just have,
He's downstairs.
I know, but I think he's talking on the phone with somebody, right?
He wasn't when I was just down.
It's the time anyway, so.
Yep, where would you like to start?
Where would you like to start?
Okay.
Personnel's the biggest issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Everyone, I sent out the bar graph of the average hours everyone works in the last 5 years. Staffing wise, we're covering 17,520 hours a year of two-person coverage. Two firefighter medics working 24/7. We added in January, two new firefighter EMTs to supplement the workforce as a third person, with the hopes of adding two more to go 24/7 with 3 firefighters working. As of right now, the numbers that are in the department head's proposed contract are not what were submitted to the treasurer. So I sent that out to the board in an email after this was posted, and my line here on the budget summary request that I sent you for the 482 split between there and the EMS department included 3 individuals on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Keeping the same coverage that we have now, I would need roughly $69,000 added to the total payroll to keep the same coverage that we have now that was cut out. And basically, the monies for that 11th position are utilized to cover the shifts, because once vacation time earned, as you all saw, was 1,840 hours for a year, roughly for every individual that's on the schedule, and they're rolling over approximately 960 hours of paid time off into next year. That's enough for somebody to be off every single week all year long. One person drops off, everybody else works 48 hours. So that's where we're short payroll wise for a combined for the regular time and extra time lines. And that includes myself, the 3 part-timers, and 4 lieutenant and or acting officer positions, and the rest of the firefighters.
What was that number again? 660 what?
68,725.84 to be on the nose.
Say it one more time, please.
68,725.84 if you transfer over the 12,000 into my base salary. Without that, with that taken out of it, it's 68,725.84. It's just transferring that from one line to another.
Ryan, when do you need 3 more lieutenants?
I'd like to have somebody in charge of the Village of Fredonia Fire Department in my absence. I emailed everyone out the job description and duties of a firefighter lieutenant today. Basically, they run the day-to-day operations, are the village official that would be in charge of the fire department, the personnel, and the, for the village in my absence on a everyday basis. The ultimate goal would try to get 4 shifts of 3 people working on a 28-day cycle, which is 24 hours on 72 hours off. But I realize that's probably not doable this year with given circumstances.
Where's All-Star stand with transporting?
As you can see on this graph here, the combined All-Star Mutual Aid transports this past year of 2019, they did 202 combined between All-Star and Dunkirk Fire or another mutual aid. About 75% of the calls are transported, and we did about 75% of the transports. Staffing wise, I don't know what it's going to be like in the future. Right now, we're staffed to transport Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, and utilizing volunteer manpower 7 days a week overnight to provide a driver so we can free up a firefighter medic to come back to the station in the event of a second call.
What's the likelihood that if a new hospital were to locate in Fredonia that it would provide ambulance service?
That it would provide? Depending on who it gives us an opportunity to transport out of the hospital more, expand out the EMS department. The hospital itself, I don't see them having a ambulance service. They don't, yeah.
You don't now, WCA had, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
when WCA became UMPC, they stopped.
UPMC owns WCA services, yes.
Right, so they stopped. And so in the county, the ambulance services have gone from 3 or 4 to your fire departments and All-Star.
We've had All-Star, which has been WCA services, Chautauqua County ambulance services all combined into UPMC's All-Star.
Right.
So they've, staffing-wise and manpower, they have decreased down. My concerns with looking to add the additional people is, certain calls, cardiac events, strokes may be directly transported to Buffalo and bypass our local hospital that will take us out of service here for 2.5, 3 hours at a time.
Well, that's why I'm wondering if there will be a plea to the hospital to start an ambulance service in addition to what we offer, which would reduce, because now it's a regional hospital.
Right.
With Lake Shore gone, so I'm wondering what the likelihood of them developing an ambulance service might be, because
depending on who owns who control and run the ambulance service, 911 service, there's not much funding in there. That's why they're not down here waiting for calls.
Because we're funding it.
There are monies in the over-the-road transports. So that some of the commercial services are coming down here now. You'll see All-Star, we've seen Gowanda and AMR and Mercy MS and Twin Cities. So they're all coming down here to service. It's not that All-Star don't have as many employees as they had in the past.
Right.
And the ones that they do have are busy doing those transfers out of the area. Or the non-emergency take-homes from like Berks back to Chautauqua County Nursing and Rehab, or different areas like that.
Because it seems like seems more and more that we've become less and less of a fire department and more of an emergency service responder.
I would agree to somewhat. That's kind of the trend across the country.
Yeah.
Is, fire is still there and we still have to prepare for it, but a lot of the fire services are picking up the EMS side of things and all hazards, really.
How long before you have the staffing, the guys who are out in training, the newer guys, how long before they're up and
Well,
operational?
the academy is postponed, as you know, so I'm utilizing them currently as a third person, Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and transporting things that come in, calls that come in during that time. In August, it's predicted the academy will start again, so that'll be another 14 weeks from August where we'll go back from, say they propose 10 full-time guys to 7 with one person on vacation, leaves you 6 guys to cover the schedule.
Is there only one academy a year?
They run an academy, usually there's 2. Buffalo usually runs a summer and spring, like a late fall, February-ish, March. And then Montour Falls runs one in July. So they're usually twice a year depending on numbers of personnel.
Could we split them up so they don't all go to one?
You could, there'd be increased costs associated with that for training.
Well, it sounds like there's going to be increased costs anyways in overtime.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, well, there'd
Overtime
be
is
increased
growing.
costs in overtime and increased costs for training.
Even if we staggered them?
Yeah, and there is a time frame. I mean, we have 18 months under civil service law to get someone trained as a full timer. So we could stagger them, but it would be beneficial to
No, yeah.
send them all at one time to get through. So that puts us, short again for every, and just a little staffing thing, for every 6 months. When you hire somebody, it takes them roughly 6 months to get trained and available. So every 6 months we kick the ball down the road, it takes about a year to get somebody going. So if we say, hypothetically, we hired, 3 more people in June, they wouldn't be ready to go till December-ish. And if we waited till December, January, they would be ready to go in June the following year. So it's a 6-month lag from time of hire, unless you can find somebody who's already trained and ready to go. So as far as, and that's utilizing the part-timers as well. And I think it would be in the best interest of the board to also have somebody, on duty in my absence that directly oversees the firefighters to have the responsibility of the day-to-day operations, and
Well, like Roger asked, why would we need 3 of them though?
one for each. They'd never work together, and you'd have every day covered for 24 hours. In a 28-day cycle, if we can get to that staffing, there'd be 4 different shifts, 1 on each shifts, and then that would rotate through, and everybody'd work every 24 on, 72 off, 24 on, 72 off. So during that 72 off, there'd be 1 person there that's in charge. It's similar to the sergeants at the police department, where they have a direct supervisor of the boots on the ground working or in charge round the clock, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
No, we'll be having greater staffing, but where do the volunteers fit into this equation?
Their numbers are down. There's probably 5 out of their membership. There's 5 or 6 that are interiors currently.
What does that mean?
Able to, if there was a structure fire or a atmosphere where that required use of a SCBA device, self-contained breathing apparatus, those that are qualified to wear one of those, and to enter a building that's on fire. So their numbers are down from there, and it comes and goes with training classes and that back on hold for volunteers as well. That there was a couple more that were going to attempt to take the classes that have been pushed off till they start again. We have approximately 7 or 8 drivers on the rescue trucks that assist in transporting to the hospital. They have a person who covers a vehicle overnight, 7 days a week, and currently there's 4 to 5 people doing that, and with 6 people currently doing that. One of them is asked not to do it anymore, and one of them, I believe, is going to be leaving the department.
I did the fires last year, and I see here 10 in the village, 9 in the town, 2 at SUNY, 6 mutual aid. How many of those would have required volunteers to have worn the apparatus that you say they are trained for? They are or they aren't trained for?
I'll just, off the top of my head, the last fire we had just recently, I think of the 4 or 5 interiors we had, 3 of them showed up that night.
And they were ones who were able to wear?
Yes.
You could utilize them?
Yes. We get a decent turnout when we have a fire of manpower. Right. It's just appropriately trained manpower that are qualified to do specific tasks. If that makes sense. And without getting into great detail, if you remember the summary I wrote and sent to everyone a couple of months ago regarding staffing and industry standards and NFPA and all that, that covers a lot of things in there.
Ryan, I'm looking at your budget request summary that you emailed us.
Yes, sir.
So on page 1, it says personnel regular $482,040.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that's just fire?
That's a half of, yes.
And then another $482.40 on page 3. That's for ambulance service.
Correct. I had total combined submitted was the 2 of those added together for regular time. The treasurer wanted to split some things out and try to show more appropriate costs in each department.
Well, and I guess that's my first question is, if it appears that about 75% of our calls are EMS, then why is it 50-50?
That's the numbers that were thrown out. Everything's always been in one line in the past, and the same personnel are operating essentially both departments. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's crossover too. You have, during the daytime, 3 individuals working, and a car accident comes in. Well, they're doing extrication and as well as patient care, so it's kind of a combined effort. How do you separate it?
You're asking for how many more full-time?
I was looking for 13 total.
And you have?
9, 10 working, and 1 currently holding a position.
Okay, so you have 11, but 10 working.
Yes.
And
so it would be 2 full-time positions plus replacement or reinstatement of the one that's off.
And how many part-time did we just hire?
We have 3 part-time individuals who were here full-time and left to go work elsewhere.
But the two we just hired?
They were left here they were here full-time and left to go elsewhere. Brent had been here for 3.5 years and went to Buffalo, and Hallberg had been here about a year and went to Jamestown. And
So they're part-time?
yes, and Alex and Ben Pickard was here. We trained him just after he finished his training. Jamestown picked him up.
So there are how many part-time workers?
3.
3. What's that?
We're training them and.
Yeah, they're leaving.
Yes. Then it goes to the
Yeah.
to retention and working conditions and scheduling and personnel.
And you currently are manning how many? 2? 2 on a shift?
Right now, there's for the last 3 years, we've had 3 individuals on Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, and then 2 firefighter medics on the rest of the time.
And we've been able to do that with this current,
We've been able to do that with 11 funded positions. I funded currently in the current budget, I have projected through the end of the year approximately, I'll say around $60,000 surplus. That is the funds from the person being off, and me filling in on the schedule, and we've been short for the last 6-8 months. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep everything the way it is now moving forward, like the number I threw out in the beginning is what I would need to stay with everything that we have now, is at 68,725.
That would stay with just 11.
That would be 10.
10
That
plus,
would be
10 plus you.
That would be 11. Yes. So it's funded but not funded.
okay, so that amount here then,
The 4. Are you talking the 482?
no, I was talking 657, 754. That was last year, and then you went up to, oh, I see, and then the 428, 584 was split between 2 lines, right?
Yes.
And added together, they're the 68, 72584.
I haven't split anything. I just threw everything together at once. Combined out of all 3 departments, or both departments, for the mayor's proposal was regular time for both fire EMS, and the extra time was 855,306. I need a combined 936,032. I can do the math real quick.
Right. Anybody keeping up with that? Because I'm not.
It is.
So this budget that we have right here is not correct. Okay. So
No.
what have you provided us that would take the place of this? Because those numbers don't jive at all.
Not even close.
The executive, the budget request summary that I proposed on there.
This,
Yes.
correct?
The personnel.
Yep.
Correct. The personnel line on there was for,
Did- Now, what we were presented with is so vastly different. You spoke to the mayor about this prior yourself? Because it's, I'm just kind of shocked that it's so vastly different from what the mayor's proposal.
You spoke to the treasurer.
I spoke to the treasurer, and the treasurer had just put numbers in, and then the treasurer and I actually sat down for a couple hours afterwards and said, basically, the mayor's proposal that's in there that Jim put in, I believe, is for everybody working 40 hours a week, period. As soon as one person takes vacation, everybody's working 48 hours. There's enough vacation time for somebody to be off every single week all year long, hence the difference in
Right.
proposals.
And do these reflect the salary increases that go into effect June 1st?
They do.
Okay. So this, Jim,
So-
from what I'm understanding is that this particular thing, the first page, and again, these are split because of billing with EMS, right? The first page reflects 482.40, and then the third page reflects another 482.40.
Plus, you got 75,120 in overtime on the first page.
And you have, yes, on just the first page for
Correct.
overtime.
And that's with everyone working straight time wages up to 40 hours a week.
So if my calculations are correct, if you add all that up, it's $1,039,200, up from $791,510. So you're talking almost $250,000.
To go with 3 people on round the clock, yes.
I don't think we can afford it. I'm sorry to say.
Right. So we continue to staff the way we are, and the combined from all 3 I need 936,032. And if I can pull this up here.
032, I thought it was a 302, but
When you say all three, you're talking about the
I'm
two
sorry,
personnel and the overtime, right?
The 2 personnel in the overtime line.
Yeah. I didn't bring my calculator here.
and with that largest overtime, would it make a difference to if we hired another person or 2 on that? I mean, because that's what,
It's basically
because I don't know if it.
you're saving the benefits. You're saving about 35 to probably around 40 to $60,000 in benefits is what you're saving. The insurance and
Well, how helpful would it be to up the salary of part-time and increase the part-time from the 4 that you have, 3 that you have?
I put 3 at 2,080 hours a week, or 2,080 a year that I'm sharing it. The problem being is 2 of them work full-time for the city of Jamestown, 2 days, 2 nights, 4 days off. The other one works 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 5 off in Buffalo. So depending on when their availability is to cover.
Yeah. So would increasing part-time help that schedule?
It could. Again, depending on we still have so many hours to cover. So we cover 336 hours of 2 firefighter medics working a week.
Would you say that one more time, please?
336 hours.
Of 2,
Firefighter medics, yes.
a week.
Yes. And right now we have 8 medics working, plus myself.
I'm just looking at having coverage and not having burnout.
Yes. So for the, with everyone working 48 hours a week, regular payroll including mine is it would be 385, 373 in each.
385, 373?
Yes, that's half of for regular time it's 770, 746, 28, and for extra time over 40 holiday pay, PTO coverage, 163,634. And that's with everyone working 48 hours a week with someone on vacation. Basically, what that budget line does is take the monies from the empty 11th person and drops it down into the extra time line. It's just a smoke and mirror. And then the extra time line,
That empty 11, how are we, I mean, are we, without going into any detail, are we any closer to?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I would check with the attorney. 60,686 would be the extra time if we split it between each department.
This is the confusing thing, is this split, I think, that
Very.
we're used to seeing it in one line, and the split is the thing between the EMS portion of it and,
We can put it all back into one if you'd like.
well, tell me again, the reason for the split is because of billing? What was the reason for the split? Just so we could keep track of how much there was for EMS and how much there was?
Jim was trying to put a true cost to the operation of the EMS and what the costs are out of there that includes future
Right.
contracts, et cetera.
And I can
My
appreciate
original proposal had the 9 full-time firefighters, medics in the fire line with their extra time, the additional 4 firefighter EMTs that we added to serve as a third person to assist in the transporting and increase the manpower were put into the EMS line to start to build that out. At that time, it was much simpler when it first started. Now it's gotten a little crazy.
It seems a little crazy. Anybody else feel that way?
So it's the same money, it's just where you
Right.
see it.
Yeah, but
It just spreads it out. I mean, it's all of it is underneath the fire department. It's just how
well,
they're pricing
right.
it.
But flipping from page to page to try to put it all together is a little weird.
I noticed you had the revenue in the ambulance down 50,000 from what the mayor had.
The treasurer's revenue, as he says, includes the accounts receivable line. I put $50,000 in there. I put the $350,000 income in there and did not include the accounts receivable line. This year, we're at approximately, to date, with 2 months left to go, we've taken in about 270,000, and as of yesterday, as of the end of March, there was 200,000 in the accounts receivable. So
So you're short about $70,000.
200,000 in the account. We still have 2 months of this year to go.
Right.
So I put
Because
in.
when this was prepared, there were close to 60,000 that were unrealized. So so it's even higher now.
His shows combined cash deposits and accounts receivable. Mine did not show accounts receivable. Keeping in mind, too, in October of last year, the board adjusted the cost recovery rates. They increased the BLS $150, the ALS 1 $250, and the ALS 2 $300, based on last year's transport numbers. That's an additional $157,000 of gross billing.
Are they? Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. It's 100 with the adjustments of October of last year to the billing revenue. It increased the billables by 157,000 a year, based on the numbers.
With our increased call volume, do you think that the end of year is going to be more realistic at 350?
This year,
Yeah. Or the 400 that he has, that's proposed
for next year's budget,
for this, the one that we're working on for this coming year.
The
Starts in
2021,
Yeah.
that starts in June.
The one that starts in June. Mhm.
I would say realistically 350,000 cash in the bank and another 100 to 150 in accounts receivable. His number included both.
So we should be okay on that then.
But we've received about, like I said, do you know the exact figure, Alyssa, of what we've got? I think he showed, did he show what's received this year in the budget? I thought I saw it in there somewhere.
Well, yeah, it was,
262, 933 through the end of February.
Okay, and March deposit was just made of $26,040, so that puts us up to
About 28,000? 290? Almost 300.
so almost
Almost 291.
291 with 2
291.
months to go and 200,000 in accounts receivable.
Does that come in waves or is it coming pretty steady?
We've been, depending on the call volume, it comes in pretty steady for Medicare, Medicaid payments, some private insurance. Some insurance companies may take 4 to 6, 8 months to make payments. So really we're, something we did today, we may not see payment on for 6 to 8 months in the future. Hence
so you're going to be three.
the 200,000 in accounts receivable right now. And this year, we are around 70 calls to date ahead of where we were at this time last year in transports.
With what's happening now with this COVID-19, are your calls increasing with this COVID-19, or are they actually kind of?
They've dropped a little bit. We're
dropped,
not,
that's
with the
right.
college being gone,
That's what I was thinking.
we're not getting a lot of those style of calls, but we are getting legit sick people, car accidents. I want to say we did 57 transports last month, which is
Down a little
down
bit.
a little bit, but not, we're still 70 some ahead from where we were at this time last year.
And what we had last year budgeted.
And is the increase for the transports, I mean, I look here, Ryan was kind enough to give me, I was interested in the transports here. Did everybody get that?
I gave a copy to everybody, yes. And Roger, I emailed yours today. I apologize.
That's fine.
Back to 2013, where there were only 76 transports, up to this past year, where there are 876 transports. That's a significant, I mean, tremendously significant difference. Is that because All-Star and the rest of them have stopped doing what they're doing?
Yes. The short answer, yes.
Because the calls have not, I mean, I see the calls themselves have gone up a bit, but not in relation to the transports.
Right, we've kind of plateaued call volume wise from 14 to 15. Pretty much we're within, give or take 100 each year.
Right.
Transporting wise, the calls have gone up. I wanted to do two. I don't want to say they're unavailability. There is a shortage of EMTs and paramedics nationwide. And we're suffering in this county probably more than others for those positions as well. And the staffing's just not there to meet the demand of the call volume.
And let me ask you this, we just went through this, and I'm just learning all this, but as of May 1st, we're stopping
Yes.
the transport of surrounding communities.
Yes.
How will that affect this number?
We might see a decrease of 30 to 40 calls throughout the year, but it'll let us help our own.
Right? And when I look at the local calls here with village and town,
Yep.
that's a reduction of almost 400 total EMS. I'm assuming those would be the ones that were outside the village and the town. Is that correct?
You're
Based on
looking at,
219.
well, the mutual aid would, we would still go to Casadega, Brockton, the city of Dunkirk for transports because they can reciprocate it back.
Right.
So out of that, there was 117 in 2019 that were mutual aid, 18 out on the thruway and 131 at the college.
Okay. So you don't see the stopping of servicing to those communities around us as significant in the number of transports or the revenue?
I think with the increase in our cost recovery rates, that it'll balance itself out.
I was hoping for an increase, actually. The point, was to recover some of the costs that we were spending with that rate increase.
Right.
And this is actually just kind of
I mean,
turning it into a wash as opposed to
it could,
recovery.
It's hard to predict what's out there. But the calls aren't going away.
What will the hospital do to it if the hospital were to be located in?
It gives
within
us
the
an
village?
opportunity to do things that come into or out of the hospital. So we could, again, it goes back on the staffing. Do you want to send, the two guys that you have working to Buffalo on a transporter and leave this area unprotected for fire and EMS?
Right.
That's not going to affect this year's budget, though.
No, not this year.
No, or next year's probably,
Yeah.
or the year after.
So
What do you absolutely have to have, Ryan, in order to maintain the?
To maintain the current staffing that we have now, I need the numbers that I gave you there, the 936,032 totals. I need an additional 68,725.84.
Say it again. An additional.
68,725.84.
now, you said that does not include the 12,000 for that.
No, no, with that in a separate,
If that's in a separate line.
in a separate budget line, but if we transfer it back over, it's,
But it's part of, it is part of it, though, because we're going to have to add that in there because it is,
if you,
it's on a separate line, but it's part of the fire department, so we're looking at,
Correct.
so an additional 12,000 on
well,
top
that's,
of that
it's
68.
accounted in the budget in a separate line currently.
It is, I know, but it's
Correct.
still part of fire department, so that's going to have to be figured in. So it's yeah. So
If you figure that
so you're
in-
looking at 80,725.
With that figured in, but
With that
like I said,
figured in.
it's already accounted for in the budget, just in a separate line area. And that gives us the same coverage that we're currently running now. It could decrease the transporting a little bit because we're not set up to transport primarily on Saturday, Sundays, working with two individuals on. With the availability of the ambulance service, and if things get cleared up, they'll be back into their facility transfers like that. They could leave us with doing a transport and not having someone to respond to a second call or a fire call during that period of time. So that's where that third person on duty comes into play. And I mean, that's with, keep in mind, in August, they'll be leaving for 3 weeks, or three of them will be leaving for the academy for 14 weeks. And that is 1 or 2 people were to become injured and or, positive for the coronavirus or et cetera. There's, it just could have the potentially to wipe out a third, half, all. The bar graph that showed the hours worked over the last 5 years, there was the back page of it just had a brief description of what's happened during those years,
Right.
Unforeseen things that have caused
Right.
shortages.
Well-
And honestly, I've worked here for 18 years, and I think we've been understaffed for all of them, plus prior to. There are safer grants and stuff out there that are available. I know that they were putting more money into them government-wise this year. I don't know what they're going to do, but that to be eligible for those, you have to meet the industry standard, and that is 4 individuals on round the clock. And they haven't released the program yet for this year. They were trying to get the government to waive the co-pay, the share percentages. 5-6 years ago, it was 100% money for the first couple years, then a sliding scale. The last couple years, it was like 65-35 was the municipality share, but that's gone away. Don't know.
The governor recommends that we review and adjust budgets quarterly at this point with everything that's in mind. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't behoove us to stay at a minimum now and review when it's coming time for the guys to go off to training and see where we're at with the revenue, with the things that have come in, with, can you maintain that with the figures you've given us until then?
We can that's, I can't, the extra timeline will go up once they leave,
Right.
But from now until then, our current, I'm averaging right now around 50,000 a month in regular time payroll and around 10 to 11,000 in extra time. And keep in mind too, as with thousands of hours on the books and paid time off right now, I have someone off basically from mid-May right through September. Somebody's off every week. So we decrease coverage or coverage hours, potential to decrease revenue, and services provided is end result.
When do we negotiate with the town of Pomfret? When is that up? Anybody know?
End of next year. I believe it was a 3-year, signed in 18.
I believe that's what it was.
Yes.
I thought we just renegotiated something.
We
Time
did,
goes
but it was,
quick.
I know.
it was
Yeah, it is quick.
a year and a half ago.
Wow.
So let me ask you this, I just have a question about this with the budget. I understand that the volunteers get 35% of that contract, is that correct?
Yes, 35% of the contract, 17.5%, which this year 74,299.75 will go directly into capital equipment account that's maintained here, and the other 74,299.75 is a line item in the is part of my contractual line item in the fire department budget. So it passes through the village budget to go to the volunteers.
And what is it that they do with it that to benefit?
Operational expenses.
Give me an example of those.
Contribute to equipment, some of their training that they share costs in.
All 5 of them?
They have more that go to training. 5 of them are considered interior. We have, what is there, 10, 12 that are EMTs, Chip?
Yeah.
Well, 10 or 12 that are EMTs, some
Really?
practicing, some not. And then probably, I want to say out of the active roles that have their OSHA training and a class done, there's probably 15 to 20 out of 96 that go.
Is that a contractual agreement? Where does that come from?
It's the split.
Uh-huh.
That is in the contract, and it has been in the contract since I've been here. I don't know how far back it goes. It was always.
How's that, yeah, I wonder how that split is negotiated. I mean, if
I think it's just-
if you have
I think it's just
17.5% to each area, I mean, I could see where the one comes back to the actual equipment and stuff, but the other half, the 17.5.
Yeah.
Out of
I mean,
that
when we
17
have so few actual volunteers providing service, that seems to be a large amount of money.
Yes.
The 17.5% they go to out of the capital equipment. They paid for half of the radios that we purchased, half of the tanker, half of the ambulance, half of the engine that
Good.
was purchased a couple years ago. So that's where majority of that 17.5% goes.
But the other,
Yeah.
the other is,
Yeah,
I guess,
the other
is the
part is-
question, I guess.
That's a chunk
It's a questionable amount of money.
that could be helpful. We have volunteer firemen among our trustees and mayor, don't we? Do you have any opinion in regard to that?
Actually, I'm no longer active, but actually, if you look at the report from this month, there were 20-some volunteers last month that showed up anywhere from 1 to, there's a 43 calls, and another one did 56 calls. So it's more than just the 5 that are interior.
It's 20 out of
Right.
about 100.
Yeah, there's about 20 or so that are cleared through their OSHA training and physicals and state classes to be able to respond to calls.
Doug, Roger, Brits, any thoughts about that?
I don't have any at this time, and I don't believe Doug's on tonight.
No? Okay, sorry.
And of course, with the volunteers, a lot of it is when's the call come in. If they're at work, there's not much they can do about it.
Right.
Right. And a lot of the money that they, it goes to operating their 501c3 corporation. So they have business expenses and office expenses and, yes.
Yeah, they have a 501(c) for 20 active members.
Still stuck on personnel, or we want to move to the rest of it? There's not much. The rest of it is pretty much, the budget other than personnel is bare bones. It's roughly a 5-year average of what we've spent out of each line item moving forward. Some of pretty much self-explanatory. The supplies look to go up a little bit. The ambulance contractual goes up a little bit. I put in move some vehicle maintenance into the EMS for just the rescue trucks, the fuel and gasoline, the contractual are appropriate, either fire or EMS section, and the training is the big one, travel training, because in there was proposed and the mayor left it in their academy costs to send the hires that I were proposing to the academy, which is roughly like $7,000-8,000.
Which line was that?
That'll
Contractual?
be the travel training.
Travel training.
So, fine.
And pretty much is within ballpark average of what was spent every year for the last 5 or 6 years.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty, there's not a lot of fluff in there. It's a pretty bare bones.
Do you want to, capital, have we looked at capital at all?
We can talk real quick. Extrication tools are in there for $32,000. That is a battery operated Ram and Hurst tools to be put on probably the frontline engine, so we can guarantee that car accidents, whatever, we can get extrication equipment there. If for some reason we don't have enough manpower and the volunteers aren't available to bring out the miscellaneous truck that has the other one on there. The miscellaneous building repairs, interior painting has been on there for the last 3 to 4 years. It keeps getting kicked down the road, waiting for the outside to be fixed before we did anything inside.
Where are we with that, by the way?
There will be I've asked for a resolution to be presented to the board at your next meeting, approving the contract, or awarding the bid, basically, to,
okay.
I believe, prior to the treasurer's, he had, the bond resolution that was passed. So I believe everything's good to go. It's just a matter of awarding Wendell and H&K the contract if the board so chooses.
Plus, we gotta figure out where we're gonna get the 200,000 from. That's over budget.
At the last meeting, Roger, the board approved a bond resolution and Jim bonded that remaining 200,000.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, we did. This equipment costs, are those some of those items that the volunteers on their 17.5% would be paying for portions of?
They,
On these two items?
those two
Extra-
probably not. We could ask for a portion of.
Yeah, because we don't have any indication of what they would be spending on, and these are equipment that you're asking for.
Right.
That we would, if we would have to take from the capital funds, or bond, or whatever we'd have to do to it.
And it's also something too that if it needs to, I mean, if we're looking at shrinking capitals and stuff down this year, it's a need. Is it high priority?
The volunteers will have paid for equipment in the past with their fund drive, I believe.
Correct.
Sure. I'm just looking at where we're going to be with costs on those.
The personal protective equipment, we cut that in speaking with Jim down to,
19.5.
19.5.
yes. The ladder truck, I knew it wasn't going to go through this year, but the board really needs to be aware that that's going to be a need in the future before something major goes wrong with it. Originally, it was bought to be a 40-year truck. It was bought used with 50-some thousand miles on it. It was driven coast to coast a few times, and since it was purchased, we've put approximately 200,000 into it in repairs, and it's to the age where there's still some value in there, but not a lot, to where it might not be worth much, and or it's German parts, where Bronto Skylift was originally from Germany. It's traded hands a couple of times. It's a 24-volt system, so some of the parts are hard to come by, and controllers. It still passes ladder inspection. However, the rotation of it around in a circle has been slowing over the years. If that center pump or bearing goes, you're looking at probably 100-ish thousand just to repair that if they can find a part. And then the parking lot repairs that are on here, the years ago, there used to be islands on Canada Way Street between our parking lot and the street. They've been taking out. That area has settled down right on the curve of the back part of the station, so there's large potholes and different things in there. We took that out in talking with DPW. Tony might be able to incorporate a repair of that portion through there under some CHIPS funding and look at replacing the back parking lot at a different time, or looking at a quote to maybe crack seal and seal coat it this year or sometime.
Okay.
So that basically wraps up the capitals. So this year's capitals, I have two that haven't been spent yet. One is the refurbish of engine 12 mechanical for about around $30,000. I have quotes. I've put it in. They've asked to put that on hold just to see where our revenue comes in at. That needs to be pushed over into next year if it doesn't get spent this year. At some point, I'm asking that would be carried over into next year. And then there was $50,000 in heating, air conditioning repairs. Jim had taken half of that out prior to, and the other half in there is on hold that could be removed if needed, but that work. We put about $5,000 into them in the fall. They're up and running currently, but there's no guarantee they'll stay.
Any good news for us today, Ryan?
The sun's shining.
Yep, it is.
So what do you want to stick with that if you're fine with all that, then we have just got to decide on the employee section of where we're going to go with that. So,
I think the capital budget has been cut to probably as much as it can be.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Roger, do you agree? Roger and Roger?
Yes.
Yes, I also agree.
So my proposal to here is we talk about the personnel line again to make it work. I had mentioned that we needed the 68,725. Currently, right now, there's a unexpended of around 56,000 in my payroll line that will be most likely that, and probably a little bit more will be there by the end of May. I would say probably another 10,000
To cover overtime? Or to cover what you're covering up?
Well, that's what.
Yeah.
That's basically the savings from me working as a firefighter, double duty, and basically that's the 68's what's needed to carry on for next year to continue the same coverage that we have.
I think that's what we're going to have to do. I don't think we have a choice in this matter at this point. I think he's cut it down. I think he really showed the need, and that's about as bare bones minimum as we could get. So I think we're going to have to look
at this time, I would have to
fitting
agree.
in that 68,725.
And that's with the correction of the salaries, because the first one we got was not correct.
Yes,
Okay.
that is a correction with the salaries, and then I worked with Michelle diligently and on the health insurance and benefits. The only thing that she didn't have that was sent out to the group was the retirement portion of that through the pension system.
Because
Okay.
I have a spreadsheet that says that the figure 799, 681, 28 with the 2% for everybody that's
Was it updated
today.
this afternoon? Because I spoke with her this afternoon, and she didn't have the
She didn't have the 2%.
correct.
She said, she mentioned that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why I gave everyone the copy of the
Okay.
contract.
That's why I wanted to know.
Pay scale, yes.
This-
So we
yes.
yeah, we spoke.
Okay.
And
Good.
there was, so.
Okay.
The ones that, what she listed was current of what everybody was at, not, I projected out,
There was a 2%.
there's
But
a
I
2% contractual raise.
Right.
But then it's, well, what step did people go to
Right.
during the budget year and that?
Yes.
So the numbers that, the total number that I sent, and I actually have a spreadsheet here somewhere for myself that lists everybody and their wage and. So, and it all depends on where you want to put the, do you want to put it all back in the fire department? Do you want to split it 50-50 with fire and EMS? It's all, like, that's
Yeah,
the
how you
board's
gonna-
decision.
Yeah. How do you feel about that splitting thing? I mean, you're going to use it wherever you need it anyway, right?
Right.
Correct.
It's just, it's a reporting thing, or will that require
Well, so-
budget transfers if we have to get, is that going to
No,
require
because it was
those?
just, it would just draw out of.
Okay.
Out of both. So the only thing where it might come into play down the road, and I still have to dig in, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and the CMS cost data analysis through Medicare kicks in June 1st as well, which tracks all of expenses through for fire and EMS and what time is spent doing what, where, and
So that's the
building and-
purpose for the split?
It's part of, I mean, I'll have a formula to figure out how much time's actually spent.
Right.
But that's one of the other things that they've added on that this next year I'll need to work on
Keeping track of.
to track that's due at the end of the fiscal year. And, you know, there's a 10% penalty for not complying with them, but then it opens the door to them for everything. I mean,
I guess that's what we're going to do then?
Roger and Roger, what are your thoughts?
I don't have the right numbers, so I'm not sure at this point. Until I get the correct numbers, I'm not gonna
Okay.
commit to it.
what numbers are you looking for, Roger?
I mean, that's what we're here for.
The numbers the other trustees are talking about.
Those are the ones that, did you email those to him? These?
Yes.
You have, he emailed them, Roger, to you.
I mean, that's what we're here for, is to make this
Yeah.
decision and move on. You know, we can't be waiting.
We don't have to
Otherwise,
make-
we'll have to have another meeting just to make that decision.
I wish we could give you everything you want, but we just.
I understand that.
Yeah. And I think that we'll probably, all five of us will need to, sit down just at the end to review everything, I would think, don't we?
I would,
Well, yeah,
I would think so.
Yeah.
At the very end, you
Yes.
have to. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where
But we should
we're.
already have our decisions made by.
Yes.
Well, that's the thing, because the thing is because she's going to have to enter everything to give us a final data of
Right.
all this. So that's why you kind of got to have this
Yeah,
now.
exactly, yeah.
So that she could put that together, so when we do
Right.
make that final review, the information is compiled so that we have that ability to make that
Right.
final decision to accept the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
At a
so
certain
this is,
point, it has
so
to be-
at this point, we need to make that decision that
One other thing I need to ask for is
you could accept it
the
or not.
part-time hours. Part-time hours, I had 3 of them sharing 2,080 hours, which is fine. The rate of pay needs to be discussed. The 3 of them are firefighter paramedics who have good amount of experience. At the proposed $18 an hour, they're working next to possibly a firefighter EMT who's making $21.79 an hour.
So you were proposing 25, right?
I proposed 25. we can meet somewhere in the middle, maybe 22.
22? We talked about this. I think
did.
that,
And
Roger, are you in favor of increasing the part-time salaries from 18, what is it, 18 what?
$18 an
To
hour.
22 in an attempt to retain them?
Yes.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. Is that, was it in the budget, or is it still at 18?
What was proposed is, the figures that I have here in my little spreadsheet has them at 22 for the numbers that I gave
So that does include that in the
At-
numbers you gave
at
us?
22.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
At 22 then?
They're making $20 an hour roughly at the, county EMS and a
Right.
little bit less than that.
Yeah,
at
we need to,
All-Star,
we
so
need to be
it's-
able to retain them. This constant training is keep preventing us from utilizing the people we train, and then we end up constantly having significant overtime when we shouldn't be in other areas. So it's a lot of expense on us that we need to
Rogers,
prevent.
if you would like numbers, I'm looking at 385, 373 in fire regular time, and the same in EMS regular time, and 165, 286. They can go in one, or we can split it or just put it all in.
For
one.
overtime?
Yes, total for overtime.
Total.
Yes.
How much again for overtime?
165, 286. And keep in mind too that if the part-timers don't work, that salary doesn't get spent. And that figure there includes the emergency management duties and salary added to my,
936, 032?
yes,
936, 032.
yes. Did it add up?
That's the total.
That's the total.
Yes.
Can you repeat that total for me, please?
$936,032.
Thank you.
It's, so basically if you transfer the others, the 12 over from emergency management into my job title, it's a $68,000 increase from what was proposed.
Right.
68,000 even, right?
68, 725, 84.
725, 84.
Yes.
But that's up 144, 522 from last year.
We added, in January, the board added 2
People.
full-time
People,
EMT
right.
positions.
So it would be.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
up
so
just
we-
over the budget that we received, is what you're saying?
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So we are good here?
I mean, it was, he
These are the-
had 372, and I'm proposing 385 for regular time.
So we could have her enter these, and then when it's time to review, go review it again and make sure
Yes.
before we adopt the budget, and then we'll go forward.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Ryan, we will meet with you at some point over your proposal. Your contractual proposal and your emergency, the duties in regard to that?
Yep. And if we want to just add those, like I said, I'm already
That-
kind of doing them, so maybe.
Yep.
Maybe the next board meeting, we can talk afterwards.
Sure. We're,
And that amount
Hopefully.
is in there, so we're all set. So it's on the line, so you're all set.
And like I said, there's, as of right now, you go to the end of this budget year in the payroll line, there'll be approximately 66,000 left in there.
Right. Okay.
Surplus that can be carried over to that 68 and it's a wash.
Yeah,
It'll be a wash, right?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ryan, and thanks for all of the very.
Thanks, Ryan.
Chris,
All right, how are you?
great. Hey, listen, you did a great job with that chlorine thing up there. Good for you.
Yeah, it was a
Bit of a scare.
emergency.
Yeah.
Everybody was great. Yeah, the hazmat folks from the county really know what they're
Yeah,
doing.
we seem to get. I got a lot of emails about that. I
Yeah.
think everybody. That was really nice that everybody got those. Kept everybody up to date.
Yeah,
How are the two new people?
the two new guys are doing as well as expected for sure. Well, actually, a little better than expected. They started their training. They got their courses started. Been very attentive, respectful, learning, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed. You know that. Right?
Their training's online, right? Obviously.
No, it's actually a correspondence course.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I kind of go through the
Great.
chapters with them.
okay.
So I'm kind of like you have a teacher on hand, basically, you know, myself and then Allison.
Okay.
Yeah, they're excited. They're learning quickly.
Good.
Yeah.
That's great. How about your budget lines here? Can we go through those?
Yeah. Whatever you want to talk about, we got a few.
Probably start with revenues.
Yeah, I'm looking for it here.
With what there, Jen?
Your
Revenue.
Is that in the mayor's?
What you make? Yes, that's in the mirrors.
Mayor's one. That'd be right in the front.
Those are in the back, right, of his budget? The revenues
Yeah.
for water and sewer. Is that right? Are they?
Yeah, so there's a whole page for water fund budget, revenues and expenses.
I'm a- I see that the mayor had increased the revenues, a couple $100,000. I was wondering where, not only on just an average scale, where that extra came from, but I'm a little concerned now that because of the college not using much, we're going to probably be even short from last year's. So I'm just wondering where we're at. What are your thoughts on that?
Truthfully, I don't know. I don't keep up on the revenue and the metering or the.
Okay. Yours is just the plant itself as far as how to,
But I think
But
that
as-
the
but as far
back
as-
payment kind of makes up for that for these next. It can. make up for some of it? We just talked about an agreement with them for back payment of water not billed. That may make up for what we missed this last, couple months, or what we will miss this last couple months, at least fill some of the hole.
But he's proposing an increase. So I could see
Yes,
backfilling.
I agree, yes.
The increase I don't see. I don't
Right.
see the increase.
there
I
anything
can
in the-
see the balance of backfilling to where, something too similar to what we received over
Right.
last year.
Right.
Jim, if I can interrupt, was there something, I think I do recall reading something, an executive summary on that? Did you have a note on that or something? There was a 3-page executive summary in this somewhere, but it's not in my copy for some reason, but
The mayor's executive summary?
I think so. I thought as we're talking about it now, I think there was, when he made some increases, he left a note on it.
Appropriate increase.
Darn, I wish I brought that.
Numbers.
Yeah, he's got budgeted appropriated increase from current year, 120,271. Funds projected to have an operating gain of 186,538 for the fiscal year due to return of 238,123 of unused capital fund transfers. Water rates are unchanged. Water minimum rate remains unchanged.
So those are his
Now you're cold.
adjustments.
It's hot in here, cold in here, hot in here, cold in here, yeah. Got a plan for all types of weather.
Roger, where are you seeing that?
That's on here.
The executive summary, last page,
Oh,
water
okay.
fund.
All right, thank you.
I know.
Okay, so you've got a,
Yeah, way too much here.
unused capital funds transfer. Again, I'm wondering why we have unused capital funds transfers, that what wasn't done that was, what wasn't done that was returned to the capital fund?
Jim told, I don't know what the project was. Remember, Jim told us that those monies had to get put back in. He couldn't just leave them there. It was unused.
I believe that was the 24-inch repair. There was $40,000 or $50,000 budgeted the last couple of years for that, but we never did it.
Is that, well, I guess my thought being is that going to have to be reappropriated? Is that repair still to need to be done? It will have to be reappropriated to that
Yeah,
same
not this
repair?
not this year. This
Not
was
this year?
What they were talking about, the engineers and the last mayor. I don't know if I spoke with this mayor about it, but they were going to have a couple different phases to this construction that we have going on now. They're calling this one phase 1. And then in the phase 2, they were going to work on the improvements to the road.
Right.
Right.
And then the 24-inch line, and those were actually capital projects. So they bumped them out of the capital projects and put them on like a bonded project issue for the future.
And that was that interest, the serial bond, the EFC, that we added the 25,000 back?
That probably.
I thought that was it. Is that it, Jim?
I don't know. Well, that'd be more than that because he's talking. They returned 238,000.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
more.
There's a capital fund transfer of $399,366.
That was other. That was in the general fund. That was from not general fund. I'm sorry. It was you can't do from each the water and sewers. Those have to remain within their own separate funds. So that was something separate.
238, 123.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's it. If you look at the top of that page under revenues, it's the last one. Water interfund revenue capital fund.
That's,
238.
yeah, that's what we're looking for, yeah.
So we get the answer to that?
Some of it, I guess.
All right, so then, yeah, that, I guess we're gonna be fine with that number then overall, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be fine with the proposed number.
And how about
Okay.
the capital? We're good with that. There were water meters, is that right? Do I remember that? Yeah,
What was that
right.
question?
I just remembered the discussion about water meters, and they're in the capital budget.
They are.
We've got 10,000 for residential and 20 for commercial.
Yeah.
Right, or, sorry.
Chris?
Chris, are we moving forward on that?
That's Tony's department, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with Tony and the guy for the company probably a month and a half ago. So apparently we are, we're putting that in.
Yeah.
I see he took out the grading over the reactor area that you wanted in there. So I believe it was going to be to help with the maintenance of that.
Yeah, that we took out to counterbalance the cost of the emergency chlorine switchover that we're going to be doing since we had the incident, changing from gas to pelletized chlorine, so we won't have that safety issue anymore. So we kind of, and as well, the grading over the reactor area is kind of silly to do now. It's been in our capital budget for a couple of years, but
Right.
they're actually changing out their reactors now, so they would have had to tear it out and rebuild it. So we figured let's not even going to go there, and that was 29,000, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is Tony able to do anything with the parking lot or the roadway?
Yeah, they're going to do minor repairs to get us through this construction season.
Okay.
So is that 50,000 still gonna be needed in there then?
Where is that, Jim?
50,000 for which, Jim?
It says blacktop driveway.
Oh, I have, on their capital here, I have 30 for parking lot and roadway.
That's what I have too, yeah.
But it was cut out if you look all the way over.
Yes, right.
I'm sorry, I was looking at wastewater, I'm sorry.
It's all
I was
right.
I was the wrong budget. I went down a little
Oh,
too
yeah, I
far.
see what you're
I was at the
doing.
bottom of the page,
Yeah.
same page, but okay, so it was 30,000, okay, yeah, gotcha. So that was taken out,
Yeah.
thank you.
Chris, the sludge well clean out, that's not part of the project we're doing?
No, that's not. That's a routine maintenance every 3-4 years. And it was 3 years ago, so we figured we were going to use some extra volume of that sludge well when we tear the reactors down during this project coming up. So,
Right.
so we figured by the end of the year, or probably by the end of this, before the fiscal year is out. I mean, not this year, but when we're talking about the budget, it'll definitely need to be done.
What about the rehab 24-inch at the clear well? That's not part of the project either?
No, that's going to be part of the phase 2, I believe, that the engineers are kind of drafting right now.
Okay.
And how about, the road repair, are you seeing that it's not absolutely necessary to budget in there because of the construction? You're thinking, why do it before all
Right.
those construction vehicles are coming?
Exactly, yeah. Tony
okay.
said he can do with some of our product that he has on hand, to millings and whatever, just to grade it, make it smooth for him.
And security-wise, you feel the cameras are sufficient?
Yeah, the facilities cameras are sufficient. We were hoping to get a camera up at the reservoir. We're still, even today, I'm hearing
Does it
four-wheelers up
include
there.
that? These
This was,
security-
that's still in there, right?
8,000 is still in there.
Right.
Security camera, light, reservoir.
That was one of the few things we were going to hopefully keep in the
Yeah,
projects.
it's in there.
It's in
I
there.
think it makes sense.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And speaking of the reservoir, where are we with the Forcon proposal and the forestation of the,
The management plan.
yes,
Right now, they are, everything's on hold, obviously, with the
sure.
state of emergency, but he's just waiting for that to lift, and then he wants to have a meeting with everybody and then go through the next steps of the project.
I read through part of that, and I know, Roger Pecos, you have too. What was the proposed revenue in regard to that particular project? Do you remember, Roger?
I have the notes on it somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read the Forcon proposal, and and there were parts of the reservoir that they feel are not accessible to clear or to
Currently, yeah.
manage. Okay.
Correct, yeah.
They have to cross the spillway, and if the water's higher than the spillway, you
Right.
can't cross the spillway. You take out, there's
Right.
some pilings on each side of the wall
Right.
to bring equipment across, but,
Is it possible to negotiate with neighbors to cross?
yeah, I believe that's what they're going to be doing.
Okay.
And with National Grid, I guess, too, some
Yes,
of their,
for
the power line runs through there, and
Okay.
they're looking for
quite a
right-of-ways on
project.
that.
It is.
Yeah.
They are, I know it was going to pay for itself, basically,
Yeah.
and plus, but.
Yeah, I just wondered what the revenue was, and I know that there is some, but it's not a
Yeah.
lot, but I just wondered what it was offhand.
Yeah, that wasn't the motivation for the project. It just
Right.
It's so overgrown
Yes.
and the actual watershed itself needs
Yeah.
some attention. So
Well, it's a maintenance that should be
yeah,
ongoing anyway.
That hasn't
so,
happened in a while, so
Yeah. Thank you.
a couple decades, I guess. So, but he's ready to talk to folks whenever when this comes back, when we're back online here. So,
Great.
excuse me.
How's everybody feel about
I think overall, I think you're in pretty good shape. I think.
Roger and Roger?
I'm good with
Yeah,
what I
I'm
see.
good with it.
Yeah, I'm good with what I see, and it's overall, I think you're in pretty good shape.
I agree.
I did have one question. I brought just a handout of it. Michelle got a hold of me this week. I guess she got a hold of everybody and redid the personnel lines. I haven't handled that over the past few years. It's just the treasurer always handled it, or the administrator, or whoever was here. I see that the total village cost doesn't match up with the budget. I don't know if that's something you're aware of, or if I'm reading this wrong, or.
Do you have, when you have total village costs of $372,792.80, is that what you're looking at?
Yes.
Yes. It is, what's in the budget that we received is not correct. We do find that the salaries didn't reflect the most current pay rate. So
What's,
they will, you guys, if you didn't get this, you will. Michelle, Doug has asked, and I asked this morning for current rate. And there are corrections almost everywhere in
Yeah.
regard to these.
The
but
personnel, yeah.
We do have them, Chris.
Oh, okay.
They are correct.
All right.
We do have the corrected amount.
and is it significantly higher?
Well,
I mean, that's
It
just what we
is-
need to know.
this is the total village cost, and that includes the insurance, and if you're looking for just the salaries,
Just the
which
salaries,
I
yeah.
think, just the salaries
Yeah, it
was 317,179.20.
Yeah.
So it's, okay, so it's not significant.
It's not significant until you figure that the water personnel, our CSEA, whose contract expires May 31st. And so as of June 1st, there isn't a salary step to follow because that contract expires.
Right.
So that's something that needs to be negotiated that's not reflected.
It's not reflected in
No.
our budget, so we have to anticipate.
Because the contract expires, and so there's no step to go to. And it's not reflected in this.
So what are we going to do in that case? And it's not like we
Well,
want
it's
to
something
put a lot
that
of money in there and say, hey, here's
Yeah.
what we have available.
those,
We're going to give you a whole lot of money.
those contracts, I would imagine, should have already begun to be negotiated, but I don't believe they have.
Probably, I think,
Roger and Roger, you guys know of any of that?
No, nothing's happening that I know of.
my understanding is that all those contract negotiations are going to be on hold for, and they're in force as they are until,
Oh, yeah, Taylor law requires that they stay put, but, you know, at some point during next year's budget, that probably will need to be reflected.
yep.
And as far as water and sewer goes, I think we're good. I think it's the rest of the places that,
Right, yes, this is true. With our water and sewer, we're probably good because we
Right.
have a reasonable fund balance in those departments.
right. But that's something that, I mean, I don't know, how do we, Roger Brits, you're with finance there, how do we reflect increases for negotiation that haven't begun yet?
That's a very good question.
I'd say you add 2% to all of it.
Yeah, I've never come across a situation, and obviously this is a unique situation, so
I don't know.
I say you add 2% to all of it to be safe.
I
Buffer,
think across the board, 2% would be a safe number.
just do a buffer of 2%.
Yeah, we're gonna have to allow for it somehow.
Right.
So,
And I mean, the negotiations will happen for whatever. And
Yeah.
And again, this is probably, some of the questions I had when we first started the budget process. We probably going to have to revisit this in 4 months.
Probably.
that's likely.
But by putting that 2% buffer, it prevents us from going over on the tax rate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all the CSE now, CSEA,
Well, it's not
except,
tax rate, actually, it's the cost of the service. This is not based on tax rate.
right. Except fire's contract with the employees who fired don't expire until 21. And the police don't expire, I believe, Roger Pecos, I'm sorry, I think, they don't expire until 21. But water, sewer, and any of the admin people, clerical, they expire May 31st, next month.
Correct.
So,
I believe that's correct.
yeah. So we're good with fire and police. It's the rest of them we need to make those allowances for.
Right.
I'd be comfortable with the 2%.
Well, I think you're right, Roger Brits. We probably will have to revisit at some point.
I think we should just be prepared to
Yeah.
schedule that in.
Absolutely. Alyssa, you good with that?
Yep.
Okay. Chris, was there anything else?
Well, just the other thing I was curious about was the overtime line. Not sure if I have the correct one here, but
31,956 is what's in there.
and that's in the mayor's budget, Roger?
That's correct.
Because I had a
Yeah.
last spread I had was
31,956, that's right. He's right.
With the 2 additional employees,
yeah.
will that decrease, do you think?
It's definitely going to decrease, but then there's a caveat there. I made a handout here for you to see. That was one of the curiosities there. And then there are 2 elder statesmen there have, let's see.
That number is less than the last proposed budget from the
Right.
previous year, so,
Right.
I mean, it's already been down.
Am I looking at
What was
the-
happening was, the last two fellows had, or our two oldest operators have approximately 300 days off of crude over their career. And, I mean, if they started using those days, we'd be in trouble as far as overtime line.
Okay, I see. So
So that's what I'm trying to, I at least want to make a mention of that. I mean, between the two of them, there's 600 days off,
I see.
almost. And they have been using them. Michelle, they had an excess of what the contract allowed, I guess.
Right.
And so Michelle kind of let them know that they were, they were over that. So they've used them from the holidays on to now. I guess it starts with your hire date. That annual period starts from
Yeah,
one
your
hire date to hire
anniversary
date, anniversary date, right?
Yep.
As to how many vacation days they can carry over, sick days, whatever. But they also have comp time. I mean, one of them takes comp time pretty much regularly instead of the pay, which would turn this out of whack, our overtime line. So he could stop doing that and start taking the pay, which would make this too. So I guess we're kind of in a catch-22. I just want you to be aware that if they did want to use that time,
You got to have coverage. So,
we're going to be,
So,
I mean,
Well, again, the nice thing about the water department is that we have the ability to do some
fund
line,
balance.
some adjustments.
We
But
do.
let me ask you, I'm lost here because I'm looking at the water budget and I'm seeing personnel time, maybe I'm looking wrong, as 12,960. Is that correct? What are you guys looking at 31?
overtime.
I see personnel, and then personnel overtime, under water fund, under water budget.
oh, you're looking at the distribution. You have to go back.
Distributions under streets department.
Page before that,
Under streets
you've
department.
done, yeah. What page? There were numbers.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I'm lost.
At the
Yeah,
beginning of the
page two.
water fund budget page,
It's gonna be line,
Oh,
it's gonna be line
31,956.
42. Line 42.
42.
it's under purification.
Yeah.
yes.
The heck is it doing under purification and not
Well, that's
I am
personnel
in the right
overtime?
spot.
Huh?
I'm in the right place.
Yeah, I see it now. So what is that other overtime of 12,960?
That'd be for like repair of water lines, water line
There's
breaks,
guys that.
things like that.
Yeah, the water line guy. I think Ron,
How many
Meter-
other lines are there of overtime that I haven't?
that's the meter reader guy and the,
Yeah.
and the water repair
Okay.
fellows.
So it's just those two?
Tony will have that figured out. Yeah, there's a
Tony has
percentage
that.
of he takes streets department guys and a percentage of their time and salary goes into the
I
water
see.
line.
Okay.
The distribution line, I should say.
Okay, thank you. So overtime total then, you take that 31,956 and add the 12,960?
Well, that's actually the streets department overtime, that distribution
Gotcha.
level. Yeah, it's not our total.
Okay.
Which was my last thing, if I can straighten out one last thing here. The very last page of Mayor's budget where it has personal positions and related cost to job title. I think it's one before the sewer fund is ours, the village water department one.
Okay.
It has the list of how many positions there are and then the cost that comes to that 317.
Yeah.
There's only 3 plant operators right now.
Oh, yeah. That was,
I just didn't want to I didn't want to mislead that there were 7 employees down there, when there's actually 6. Or am I reading something wrong?
Yeah, on the current spreadsheet, there are 6.
It's this one here,
Right. That's incorrect.
at the back, yeah, that's what I
This
just
is
wanted to,
correct.
yeah.
Yes. You guys don't have this?
Okay, so it should read,
There are 6 employees and the total salaries are $317,000 $179.20 for salary with those 6 personnel. And that includes the 2 new people.
Total of 6.
I will get you all of this. Michelle just created it all.
I have 2 of them if you want them right now. I can print them out. Yeah. We made a couple of them. Actually, I'll give you
When I sat down with the person,
them in the middle and then you guys.
Well, she's got one.
I
so
have
why
them,
don't
they
you
can
take
have them, yeah.
That's one that I was talking about from Michelle.
Okay.
Then this one, maybe I can email you that.
Sure.
Yeah.
This was the account time and vacation time and everything that they.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yep.
Can you either email that to me, Chris? Great.
Yep. Other than that, I mean, that's 3, so there's 3 plant operators, 2 trainees, and 1 chief. Other than that, I thank you all very much for being so supportive to our operation up there.
Thank you for your good work.
Thank you for
Makes it
everything
nice
you
coming to
do.
work and thinking that we can take care of things.
Chris, before you go, can you give us an update on the project?
Right now, there's probably 50 emails a day from the 3 engineers that are 3 different engineering firms that are dropping all their plans in the Dropbox that's going. Everything's getting certified. They were supposed to start today on the Vineyard Drive pump station. I talked to Tony a little while ago, but he wasn't sure if they got up there today. I guess we had our guys that were looking for them, but with the state of emergency stuff, it's been, they've updated their safety plans. They've had to do a bunch of different things before they could even start with the virus outbreak and stuff, so everything is moving along snail's pace.
Sorry.
And it's all online basically, so hoping we'll catch a break here soon and everybody can get shovels together elbow to elbow and do some digging.
All right, thank you.
All right, Roger, take care.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Yep,
Chris.
thank you all.
Good night, thanks.
Take care.